The controversial shooting of a number of cattle by the Defence Forces on a farm in County Monaghan was raised by both TDs and senators today, as Conor McMorrow reports.
Members of the Defence Forces were called in to shoot 5 cattle on a farm in Carrickmacross, County Monaghan on Wednesday. The cattle were on a farm that is the subject of bankruptcy proceedings. Sinn Féin's Trevor O'Cloheridig was first to raise the issue today.
I do note with concern an incident that happened in Monaghan this week with the shooting dead of 5 heifers belonging to a South Monaghan farmer by the Defence Forces. I understand it's related to a repossessions case. I'm very concerned, number one, and I've raised on many, many occasions the issues around repossessions in the state, the way they're being handled. But surely there are questions as to why the Defence Forces have to get involved in a situation like this.
Fianna Fáil Senator Robbie Gallagher questioned if the shooting was over the top.
I'm not aware of the full facts surrounding this particular case, but it does cause some concern that it does appear on the face of it fairly heavy-handed, the manner in which these cattle were put down. I understand there were 5 limousines, about 18-month-old heifers. This seemed, as I said earlier, slightly over the top. Cattle, when they're excited, it takes a while for them to settle down. Being born and reared on a farm myself, there are ways and means in which cattle can be handled.
Opinions appear to differ among Fine Gael senators on the issue. Here's Michelle Mulhern and Paul Coughlin.
I note from the coverage that it was mentioned that they tried to round up the animals for 8 hours. Well, I find it very difficult to believe that they couldn't round up 5 heifers after having rounded up 30 cattle and calves before that. And I'm just wondering, is this the most humane way that we can put animals down if they are indeed some health risk or risk to public health? And I think some statement needs to be made by the Department of Agriculture and or the Department of Justice and perhaps the Minister for Defence. Like, who's footing the bill for all of this as well? I mean, it sounds crazy and it sounds bizarre. And I might also say that I read that it was reported that these animals were wild. Well, now, they also say that the animals went down on a TB test. Now, how were the animals rounded up for a TB test if then they can't round them up? And I see the official assignee says the animals were roaming the road, and yet they shot them down in a field. Like, it gives rise to an awful lot of questions.
As I understand it, it was to prevent these cattle entering the food chain. It had nothing to do with repossession. I mean, we all have our views on repossessions. That should be a last resort, obviously, when all avenues are explored. But as I understand it in this case, it was to prevent animals, because of TB or some other related disease, entering the food chain. So it was a public health matter. And now, regardless of who made the decision.
Over in the Dáil, the issue led to highly charged exchanges, with independent TD Michael Healy-Rae bringing it up with Minister Richard Bruton during order of business.
I think it's absolutely an outrageous act for our army to be used to shoot 5 cattle. Read the story, Minister. It's outrageous. It shouldn't be tolerated.
It's for discussion
and
on the topical issues today.
And I'm finishing now, Councillor. The people that were involved, who ordered the people to pull the trigger, they're a disgrace. Not the people who shot the gun, but the people who gave the order. Shame on them. Absolute shame on them from this house.
Right.
It was a disgraceful, despicable act.
This was done as a last resort for reasons of public safety, as I understand. I mean, I know as well as you do that, you know, diseases in our herd can have a huge impact on the fortunes of the whole farming sector if they're allowed to get out of hand. Right. So this containment strategy has to be in place, and it's only in a last resort that something of this nature would occur.
Calls for an independent investigation into the incident were heard later as 3 TDs raised the matter during topical issues. Here's Sinn Féin's Martin Ferris, Independence for Change TD Claire Daly, and Fianna Fáil's Niamh Smith.
Was this sanctioned by the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Defence? The owner says that all his cattle passed tests in December of 2015. In the papers, if it's true, quoting from Crystal and Anne saying that the cull had to be done because of they had failed TB test. Again, coming from an agricultural background, I know full well that any the TB tests are carried out after slaughter. So how could it be a failed TB test? You can have a reactor, take it to the abattoir, have it killed, and do a proper test. That's how it's done.
I actually don't believe in killing animals, but I realise that the slaughter of animals traditionally is done with a single bolt to the head as the most humane way possible. The idea that members of the Irish Army were firing shots at animals who were galloping around the field in terror, and not a single bolt to the head, but randomly shooting at them in the middle of the day, is just beggars belief.
There are citizens right across the country facing evictions, facing repossessions, and again, what is the protocol? Is this the type of behaviour that I could only describe as Wild West behaviour to be something that we can think that could possibly happen to citizens and their families and in communities again in the future?
But Minister of State David Stanton had this to say.
The culling was carried out by trained army personnel in the presence of An Garda Síochána and in accordance with the detailed protocols in operation between the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Defence. It followed extensive and ongoing consultation between the assignee, the Department of Agriculture, the Garda Síochána and the Department of Defence. In conclusion, I would underline that the culling of cattle is considered as exceptional and a last resort by all the public bodies concerned, and that this is an exceptional and complex case with particular facts.